A lot of people thought that Fallout 2 was going to be the very last in the series. There was a decade between Fallout 2 and 3, and it's because the team that made Fallout 2 and technically Fallout 1 was disbanded when Interplay Entertainment, its parent company, went under. Fallout 3 was nothing like Fallout 2 except for in aesthetic and ideas. So what about Bethesda's take on the series resonated so hard with so many people? Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx we ask the question, why was Fallout 3 such a big deal? Fallout 1 and 2 are isometric role-playing games that basically in every way are exactly what came from computers and role-playing in the 1990s. They are both incredibly good examples of what they are, and going back to play them is really a worthwhile thing to do. When it came time to make a sequel, the publisher, Interplay Entertainment, kind of gave up the ghost mid-development. And Black Isle Studios, the studio that had created the original Fallout, at least people who formed Black Isle Studios did, for the sake of historical accuracy anyhow. Anyway, Black Isle Studios actually developed Fallout 1 and 2, and as Interplay Entertainment was going under, Black Isle Studios, a subsidiary, had its feet tied to that weight, sinking down into the ocean. After a bit of a bidding war, the rights to Fallout were sold to Bethesda Softworks. By the time this sale went through, it had already been 6 years since the previous Fallout game. We're talking 2004. Even if the development had remained with the same team, if this amount of time had passed between games, there's a high likelihood that there would be a lot of change in the series, but it was so much more deep than that. But although a lot of the tone was preserved for Fallout 3, for instance, it's a dark game. It deals with some pretty intense themes. Death, mutation, suicide, the existential hell that is the wasteland, and it does it with black humor. They don't care if it gets a mature rating. They actually did get rid of a lot of self-referential fourth wall breaking stuff, which was very present in the first two games. They wanted the move to first person to make Fallout into a world to occupy, a true role-playing game. That's not to say that the others weren't, but it always lets you know you were playing a game. Bethesda wanted you to get lost. And Bethesda knew that in order to do this, they needed to create a world that was populated with interesting people that had what appeared to be real lives going on with real problems, who had things to say. And although creating a game in 2008 obviously presented some technical limitations that we don't have now, Fallout 3 is a really well-acted, interesting game with tons of different people with different perspectives, showing you so many different aspects of the world. The story was a bit simplistic, and for an open world game it was pretty linear. But granted, it was a big jump in what Fallout was. To be able to see it in a virtual space, to interact with all of the people, to take in what Fallout 3 is. And I mean everything from the NPCs to the damn green tint of the sky and air was just something different. Really different. Despite the fact that it was the third Fallout game, nothing else really had happened like this. And we certainly never got to see it from the actual character's perspective. And we weren't really asked to immerse ourselves in the previous iterations of the series either. There are some ways that you could call the first two Fallout games borderline satire, not only of the world itself, but also of video games. And yet here we were in a world that was immersing us, challenging our notions of what a post-apocalyptic world might be like, and also giving us a nice stylized version of that. It's really weird to see the retro-futuristic existence through the nuclear destruction that happened before Fallout 3. And the gameplay mechanics, are up for debate comparing it to later titles, really gave us some interesting stuff. The VAT system in 3D sort of brought a turn-based RPG element to a first-person shooter, and it kinda works. It kinda doesn't work too, but the fact that it kinda works is really interesting. It's fun. Whether or not it always is the best thing for the situation certainly isn't something I would definitely say, but it was a pretty big risk for what became a pretty highly anticipated game. Part of why the combat works so well, though, I think is due to the weapons. While nowadays we talk about customizing weapons, crafting pieces, finding things, and making hyper-specific weird crap, in Fallout 3 there was clearly a lot of work that went into the weapons themselves. a large amount of differentiation between all of the different weapons is apparent. The weapons all have their uses, and if you use them in the right situation, they'll be incredibly helpful. And if you don't, they'll be a detriment. Sure, you can play Fallout 3 with your favorite weapon the whole time if you really want to, but it's a better game if you differentiate because it's designed to be like that. And that's something that it held over from the RPG element that really added a layer of depth. When the mechanics were put to the test, the questing in this game is also so alive. Sure, there's outright just shoot 'em up action, wild stuff like the Liberty Prime fight, but there's also these weird morally gray things like Tenpenny Tower, a quest where ghouls want to live in a luxurious tower, missions that basically, no matter what, leave a weird taste in your mouth. And still, with all of the things that you can do in Fallout 3, in a lot of ways, the best thing is just being in the world, exploring, seeing, digging into the harder to reach places, walking into buildings not knowing what you'll find. The way that the developer's attention to the little things requires you to set your sights on the small details of the game in order to actually find everything. There is so much to see in Fallout 3. Almost any tech-oriented open world RPG or shooter owes something to Fallout 3. It set the standard, and it's still a great play to this very day. If you are thinking of doing that though, get the Broken Steel DLC. It lets you play it after you finish the game, which is, pretty standard in games now. Still, and also mods. There were some crazy mods for Fallout 3. Now yes, there was a lot of technological advancement that happened after Fallout 3. Yes, it is a fairly basic game compared to Fallout 4 even. New Vegas certainly had a more deep story, but so much of that stuff depended on Fallout 3. New Vegas wouldn't have even happened without Fallout 3. And, so would Fallout 4. I mean, the sequential numbers tend to give that away. Fallout 3 is a landmark title. It's fun, it's deep, it's interesting, it certainly lives on in its own merits, but you can also see elements of it in so many games since. No, it's not perfect, but it's influential, and it's also great. What's your favorite thing you have ever done in Fallout 3? It can be something that's canon, it can be mod-oriented, just anything you can think of that just sticks out. Leave us a comment and let us know what you thought about this video. If you enjoyed it, click the like button. And if you're not subscribed, now would be a great time to do it. We upload brand new videos all the time. Best way to see them first, of course, is subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.